So this is now being recorded, and there will be time for questions using the chat feature. So as you have a question, just go ahead and pop it in the sidebar there, and we'll circle back to those at the end when we have a chance to address them all together. So the little circles at the bottom of your Google Meet, this slide shows you how they all work. There's a place to turn your microphone on and off, a place to turn your camera on and off. And the three little dots are settings, which can help with sound and even your background if you want to have a fancy background. We're just doing the blur today. And you can check out the other attendees with the little people icon down in the bottom right-hand corner, and turn on the chat feature in the bottom right-hand corner where it has the little call-out box. Next slide. So Virginia Main Street is a program within the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development, which is committed to creating safe, affordable, and prosperous communities in which to live, work, and do business in Virginia. The agenda for today, I'm just going to do a quick overview of the Main Street approach. Many of you are already familiar with that, but it wouldn't be Main Street if we didn't just go over that for a little bit, and then talk about how Virginia Main Street fits into the larger picture of National Main Street. We'll talk about the grants that we have to offer for fiscal year 2023, some administration, housekeeping, working with CAMs, and then I want to introduce a small pilot project that you might be interested in applying to participate in about working from home, which is a national trend that we're seeing across many small and rural communities. And we'd like to study that a little bit further. If you see that as a trend in your community, we might be able to work with you on how to maximize that opportunity. And then, of course, Q&A. So what is Main Street? Main Street is a national network across the United States of about 2,000 commercial districts. They tend to rely on grassroots revitalization efforts that create vibrant, people-centered places. We try and look at economic development from an asset-based perspective, so building on the strengths of the community and operating that effort with a broad-based coalition of passionate advocates, dedicated volunteers, influential stakeholders, and community organizers. So the Main Street approach is a 4-point approach. There are 4 critical areas of activity that every Main Street effort relies on. The first and most important, but often the least respected, is organization. So you have to have that strong nonprofit, not only network, but infrastructure to do the work of the organization and the other 3 points. Design is the physical space, so what you see and the elements that are historic. Infrastructure is really critical, and anything that is consumed with the eye, I consider the design realm of the 4 points. Economic vitality, so that is not so much invisible, but somewhat less tangible. It's really the business community, so that community of small and local businesses that create opportunity and livelihoods in your downtown. And then finally, promotion, which is what most people think of when they think of Main Street because of the events, but it's also other elements of marketing, including social media, websites, communications, and that can include email listservs as well as Instagram, Facebook, and the rest. Transformation strategies is a somewhat new concept within the National Main Street Network. It's a fancy way of saying having a market-based point of view for those 4 points. So you want to have target audiences that you are addressing with each of those 4 points. And an obvious example might be if you're in a college town, you want to be sure that you have economic vitality, design, promotion, and organizational efforts that address the student population for the 9 months that they are there. Other communities in Virginia look at young families that are local. That's a very popular transformation strategy or market segment. Tourists and visitors is another very popular market segment that our communities target, but even within visitors, there can be very specific types of visitors. So in the southwest of Virginia, we see a lot of our communities focus on outdoor recreation visitors, where maybe in the northern Piedmont, there's more focus on DC area day trippers. And you can see how those types of visitors would be very different. So the outcomes of a Main Street effort: utilizing those historic assets, so putting those assets back to work, public-private collaborations, so building strength through friendships and partnerships, preserving and creating jobs. So downtown is a job creator. It is an economic development engine, and increasing entrepreneurship is part of that. Increasing tax revenue. This is one that you just can't forget, because a successful Main Street effort is not only creating wealth for entrepreneurs and property owners, but it's returning tax rolls back to local government. Creating community pride, vibrancy, and then regional allure and a sense of place. So since 1985, the Virginia Main Street program has served hundreds of Virginia localities in different ways, matching local commitment and investing our resources to the community's level of resources, and commitment. We'll have increasing levels of services, grants, and technical assistance, depending on how much the locality is willing to invest. So we have 28 of the top tier advancing Virginia Main Street. So we have 4 tiers, and the 4th tier, the top tier, is what we call advancing Main Street, advancing Virginia Main Street. And there are 28 of those communities right now. There are 70 plus exploring Main Street communities. That's actually the 3rd tier. And we have in our last bullet a mention of the mobilizing Main Street tier. That's actually tier 2. And we piloted that in 2018 with Cape Charles, had a lot of success with that. But at the present time, there are no other mobilizing Main Street communities. Watch for that to change in fiscal year 2023. So that's one of the things that Virginia Main Street would like to address with the new fiscal year. So just to reiterate, we have those 4 tiers. Tier 1, introducing Main Street. That's anybody who wants to participate. Just get on the email list and you will get information about trainings like this and others that we hold throughout the year. The 2nd tier, the Exploring Main Street Community, that is a non-competitive application process, and you receive all the information that the Introducing Main Street communities do, but you also can be more connected to our network of peers and to technical assistance from the Virginia Main Street staff. The Mobilizing Main Street tier is really intended to intentionally transition from tier 2 to tier 4. And we're hoping to develop that a little bit more in 2023 so that we can have more folks that are not only in that 3rd tier, but are really preparing for success within the rigors of that 4th tier, which is advancing Main Street. And for those of you who are on the call who are thinking about shooting for that 4th tier, keep in mind that it is not a destination. That means it's not the end. It's actually the beginning of a lot more work. So communities that are working in tier 4 have taken on a tremendous commitment that never ends to continuously improve and create opportunity for the future in their community. So how those tiers fit within the grants we're going to talk about today, the Exploring Main Street, that third tier, those folks are eligible for the Community Vitality Grant, which is up to $7,000. They are eligible for the Financial Feasibility Grant, which is up to $25,000. And they are eligible for the Work from Home pilot. So if you are thinking about that and you're an explorer, you are definitely welcome to apply. Then the Advancing Main Street Communities are eligible for a Downtown Investment Grant of up to $25,000. They are also eligible for the Financial Feasibility Grant and the Work from Home pilot, just like the Explorers. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to review the Community Vitality Grant. And this is a grant that is available to the Exploring Main Street and the Mobilizing Main Street communities. And it's a small grant, but it's there to really help advance the long-term revitalization goals of the community. And with Main Street being a comprehensive effort to manage that historic commercial district, there are a lot of projects that fall within that, like organizational development and vision and mission development, getting that work plan together, taking a look at the market and exploring what kind of opportunities that your community has before them. What are those design and economic vitality projects, really embracing the local entrepreneur and including and improving the shopping environment for your visitors. Website development, that's a very important part of your organization or your program in order to reach the public about what you offer, what you're trying to accomplish. Wayfinding system development, so we can't all rely on our phones, and getting people off of the more traveled highways and byways requires wayfinding. Plus, you know, this is that signage that brings you into the commercial center and to other visitor sites, as well as pedestrian signs once you get there. So there's a whole system involved with that. So this can be used towards that. And then other consultant services. And as long as they're ones that help to advance either the organizational goals or the economic development opportunities within the district. So this grant, the applications are due on April 28th. So we extended that a little longer than we have in the past. Grants are available for up to $7,000, and that's a 2-to-1 match. So for every $2 of grant funding applied for, there must be $1 in matching funds. So at least $3,500. That can be cash, but it also includes in-kind and volunteer hours. And we just did the number crunching with Zachary this past week for all of our reporting, and we're looking at roughly $28 an hour equivalent for those volunteer hours. These projects must be underway by the fall of this year of 22, and ideally have them wrapped up by the end of May of 2023. So you have a little less than a year with this window. There is quarterly reporting that's required in our central application management system. You'll hear a little bit more about the CAMS website at the end of this. So the funding priorities. First, you really have to be able to connect this project to what those organizational or economic vitality strategies may be. You know, what is really going to advance the economic development opportunities within the district, what's going to improve the capacity of the local program. If you have a proposed organizational development project, you know, via consultant services, that must be there to advance the sustainability of the local organization and positively contribute to the revitalization of downtown. Again, getting back to that capacity that I was talking about a moment ago. Any proposed economic vitality promotion and design projects must directly correlate with existing work plans and identified strategies for improving the district. Projects or services that enhance or complement other DHCD resources will receive priority. So if you have a CDBG commercial business district revitalization grant going on downtown, or even a planning grant, then because those are DHCD resources, that does help this project proposal to score higher in order to receive that funding. You might have a CBL, a community business launch program going on there as well. So that helps to increase the opportunity for that funding. So overall, we're talking about here that proposed projects will increase organizational readiness, strengthen entrepreneurial ecosystems, or enhance the built environment for the commercial district. So we've got our scoring criteria. The most important one, the one that scores the highest, is that the project impact on organizational development or commercial district is clear, and that there will be impacts, improvements to either one of those categories. So we just need to hear what that might look like. Do you have a market study that helped to recommend this particular project? What are the impacts that you expect within the district or within the organization? So really spend some time thinking about that and being clear to help get behind the why of this project, why it should be funded. One of the first ones here is that for 20 points, that's the project's relation to identified strategies or goals. So you can hear some alignment with what I talked about earlier. How about readiness? So this is around, does your organization have the capacity to take on this project? Is it ready? Is this project shovel ready? Has it thought through the plan? Is it a realistic work plan? Do they have matching funding? Is the project completely fleshed out? So that'd be 20 points. And then you have to have that work plan and that budget figured out. So that helps us to really understand the impact. So that's an additional. So we're looking at 100 points total. But grant funds are limited, and only proposals exceeding the minimum 70-point threshold will be considered for funding. So, so consider that. Really put some thought behind answering the questions. So the questions align with everything that I'm just talking about. You want to provide that detailed description of the proposed project. How and when will the proposed project be accomplished? Who will be working on this project? Is there a project management team? Is it the design committee? Is it an economic development work group? Who's really going to be behind this, making sure that it happens? Describe how the proposed project furthers the community's vision for the community, for the commercial district, and addresses one or more of the community's strategies. So you can even include that the downtown master plan or the comprehensive plan that includes that. Some of our exploring Main Street communities may not have a program plan or work plan in place just yet. And so really showing how Main Street connects to the overall economic development strategy for the district is very helpful to see. Then what impact will the project have on sustainable organizational development? Or what impact will the project have on the district? Being able to attract people, to make it more shoppable, safe, better lighting, filling storefronts, those kinds of things. And then describe outcomes that are expected from this project, both quantitative and qualitative. Some of the supporting documentation, I alluded to one of those, but if you have an organization, a Main Street program in place, we want to see the vision and mission statements. Often, like I said, if you don't have that program in place, it might be the municipality's vision statement that would be included here. You want to have that organization's strategic plan or the community strategic plan attached so that we can see that and see how it relates. A project work plan, upload that. There is a template that already exists. You want to have that project budget and explanation of costs and estimates and any leverage verification clear. So do you have another partnering economic development partnership that will be leveraging the funds of this grant? Do you all have volunteer hours that will be contributed to this, or any sort of public works in-kind contribution? And then the optional pieces, these really just help to help us understand what you're trying to accomplish. So a map of the district, any project rendering. So those visuals really help us to understand what you're trying to do. Program design as far as your work plan for your local Main Street program. What is that overall plan? What are you all trying to accomplish? Any RFPs that may have been developed if you're planning on hiring a consultant for some of this work. And then local, regional, and economic development plans. How does the downtown fit with even the regional economic development plan? So here's a few examples. So we've got the Southern Virginia Food Hub, and that's in South Hill. So they use these funds in order to advance community outreach so that more people knew about the opportunities at the Makers Market. And so some of the impacts led to increased foot traffic in downtown, assisted new food businesses to become viable, and provided the community with healthy food options. The town of Bowling Green used the $7,000 in order to hire some assistants with consultants to get them through that 501c3 designation with the IRS, and then also developing a work plan, that starter work plan, so that the organization and the local program has that foundation to begin from. So it was very organizational, but it was about those important aspects that you have to have in place in order to run a program. And then the town of Pulaski elevated awareness of the town's location on the New River Valley Trail through promotions and physical enhancements to bring bicycle-oriented tourists into downtown businesses. So they're really looking at that particular market and getting them involved in downtown. And so they increased that awareness through outdoor recreation designation, improved visitation by outdoor enthusiasts, and bolstering sales for local businesses. They are intentionally embracing a customer group and connecting themselves to the town's economy, to the regional economy. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Zachary Whitlow to talk about the Downtown Investment Grant.
Thanks, Kyle. So downtown investment grants allow advancing Virginia Main Street organizations, meaning our fully designated programs, to take on projects that measurably, creatively, and sustainably advance the organization's goals and strategies. DIG projects involve multiple partners, and they require active leadership and participation by the organization's board, committees, and volunteers. And funds can be used to fund complete projects, provide seed funding for new ones, or help to provide gap financing to help a project become fully funded. AVMS communities are also encouraged to utilize consultant services, mostly around design-related projects and the planning and organizational support components for economic vitality-driven projects. For those seeking to apply, grant applications are open and they're due no later than April 28th. Grants are available up to $25,000, and there's a 2-to-1 match requirement, meaning for every $2 in grant funding, $1 in matching funds is required. DIG projects must be underway by October 1st, and projects must be completed by May 31st, 2023. AVMS programs that receive DIG funding will be required to submit quarterly reports and other supporting documents as needed via CAMS. In terms of funding priorities, VMS will be looking for projects that result in measurable economic improvement in the community's Main Street district, support the community's vision for the Main Street district, and align with the mission of the Main Street organization. They address one or more transformation strategies or planning goals, and empower board and committee volunteers as leaders, as well as develop and capitalize on the expertise and financial support of the organization's stakeholders. And if all of these components are present and pretty much solid, then chances are you've likely got a great project that's ready for DIG funding. With regards to scoring, grant proposals are scored on a 0 to 100 point scale, and we're looking at the following: relation to organizational mission and vision, relation to organizational strategies and or goals, project impact and or outcomes, and as Kyle mentioned earlier, really focusing on the why factor around these previous 2 points. organizational capacity and or readiness, and is it a realistic project? Is it feasible, so to speak? Grant funds are limited, and only those proposals exceeding the 70-point threshold will be considered for funding. So in CAMS, DIG applicants will complete an application and answer the following questions. Provide a detailed description of the proposed project. Essentially, here we'd like to know what you're proposing to do with the funding and where the project will take place specifically. How and when will the proposed project be accomplished? Apart from your response, we'd also like to see a complete work plan with a detailed timeline that will help support that answer. Who will be working on the project? As Kyle mentioned too, with CVG, we want to know any and all of those organizational or municipal staff, committee members, volunteers that are going to aid the project's implementation process. Specifically, what are their roles? As we've touched upon, applicants will need to describe how the project furthers the community's vision for the Main Street District, aligns with the mission of the Main Street organization, and addresses one or more transformation strategies and or strategic planning goals, as well as why the project serves as an effective strategy that will attract private investment to the Main Street District and increase economic vitality downtown. And finally, describing the outcomes that are expected from the project, both quantitative and qualitative. For example, outcomes might be percentage increase in foot traffic, number of new jobs created, number of new businesses created or supported, etc. But most importantly, don't forget to describe and think about how these outcomes will be tracked and reported to VMS. In terms of required supporting documentation, applicants will need to include the community's vision statement for the Main Street District and mission statement for the AVMS organization, a current list of the organization's board and committee project team members, the organization's strategic plan or work plan that lists transformation strategies and or goals for the Main Street District, an effective and appropriate work plan for the project that features tasks, responsible individuals, timeline and budget, and we'll also need a copy of the project budget, which contains source of cost estimates and verification of leverage funds as well. And depending on the project type, optional documents may include those visuals, design renderings, map of downtown, project area photographs, documents around a proposed facade program, loan pools, etc., and any recent economic development plans or studies that the organization or locality has recently completed or may have completed that includes the downtown area. And in terms of a few project examples for DIG, we just wanted to give interested applicants an idea of how other communities have utilized DIG funding. Orange Downtown Alliance, who's doing business as Love Orange, Virginia, expanded awareness of Orange and increased visitation to downtown, bolstered prospective tenant recruitment, and improved public opinion by installing new banners, planters, and landscaping, while making other district improvements that created a renewed sense of identity and place downtown. Destination Downtown South Boston educated, inspired, and retained businesses through their Keep Entrepreneurs program, and that offered entrepreneurs and small businesses mini grants and opportunities to be a part of peer-to-peer roundtable focus groups and more. It was a great business retention program. Fredericksburg, Virginia Main Street Incorporated established a 0% interest revolving loan fund for new and existing businesses. And this ultimately helped Fredericksburg stimulate further revitalization and enhance the physical appearance of their district. And I'll kick it back over to Kyle for financial feasibility grant.
Yeah, and before I get into the financial feasibility grant, if you're curious about some other projects, of course we have limited time and so we can't go over them all. But our annual report, which can be found on the Virginia Main Street program page on the DHCD website, our annual report lists the projects from that were funded or completed during that year. So you can look more broadly at what some of the other projects look like who have done them. That might help you conceive what you would like to accomplish. So now we're going to talk about the financial feasibility grant. And this is a wonderful funding source in order to explore the highest and best use of an underutilized commercial building in your district. And so what we're really looking for here is one that if it was improved, if some capital was put behind putting it into a into a highest and best use, that it would be a catalytic project for the district. So we've seen a lot of theaters come through here, and I'll give some examples in just a moment, hotels, co-working spaces, etc. So this grant is primarily available to the advancing Virginia Main Street communities, but the exploring Main Street and mobilizing Main Street communities may apply if there are unspent funds by July 1st of 2022. So there's a little bit of time here to find out what that is, what's going on. I don't believe that we have any applications in at the moment. Like I said, these funds are used to identify the highest and best use. So that's to really develop those plans, look at market opportunities of what it could fill, do the environmentals, figure out an operating budget for whatever the new use may be. And then taking that information, creating some market materials to shop the rehabilitation or reuse of the property, finding developers or potential investors. So the financial feasibility grant funds are typically aid the development of that preliminary design reports and renderings, building code and zone assessments, pro forma development and construction estimates, as well as environmental reports, market demand studies, and gap financing research as needed for identified properties. Think of this as all the pre-development work that has to go in. And so if you as a municipality or as a Main Street program do that, then you're answering a lot of the questions that a potential developer or investor needs to see. They want to know, they want to be confident in their investment into your community. So the grant applications are due on a rolling basis. So this is already open. And so up until June 30th of this year, it is only open to our advancing Virginia Main Street communities, those designated ones. And then applications will open for exploring and mobilizing Main Street communities on July 1st of 22 if there are any unspent funds. Grants are available for up to $25,000 and there is no match required for this. All program funding will be obligated by August 1st or else we're going to redirect it to some other projects within Virginia Main Street. So projects must be underway by October 1st. So hopefully you have, if you pursue this, that you have your consultants that will come on board for the market study, the architectural renderings, architectural analysis, and so forth. But the project must be completed with that final report by May 31st of 2023. And we do require that quarterly reporting in CAMS. So about halfway through, we request that any draft documents get uploaded, and of course, by the very end, all documents that are final should be updated. And we use that also those key thresholds to release the funds, and that kind of arrangement is consistent with all of our grants. There are two levels. Most of you might be more familiar with doing both of these levels all at once for your study. Level 1 is code and zoning assessment, building programming, so identifying that highest and best use, so that might include that market study. Pro forma development, construction budget, preliminary design concepts, and basic rendering sketches. And then level 2 really takes it that much further to getting it to a developer. Professional market demand study for proposed new building use, environmental assessment, assessment of all available incentives and tax credits. So what does that stack look like? Letters of intent for historic tax credit investors. So will these, if tax credits are being utilized, will they be syndicated for a stream of investment into a larger project? So what is that financing plan and identification of tenants for end uses? So we reserve the right to only fund level 1 activities for any project application. DHCD reserves the right to only fund level 2 activities for any project if it is determined that level 1 activities have already been satisfactorily completed previously. So I recommend that you have a conversation with the Main Street rep who is in your within your district. And I don't think we really covered that so much, but I work the eastern part of Virginia, think the I-95 corridor all the way to the Eastern Shore. Zachary is Central Virginia, all the way to Southern Virginia. And then Courtney works with Southwest and a good portion of the Shenandoah Valley. So funding priorities, we need a clear explanation of how the redevelopment of the building would be catalytic to the Main Street community. The proposed project should demonstrate that the successful redevelopment of this property will have significant economic benefits to the Main Street community and result in a stronger, more diversified business environment. This could even be show that housing is feasible within the district. The more people you have living downtown, the more regular and reliable customer base you have for your local businesses. The proposed project will indicate the strong likelihood of redevelopment. So hopefully by the end of this, it shows with the reporting that the rehabilitation for proposed use is feasible. And then using that information to market to a potential developer or investor. So the scoring criteria, the highest one is the likeliness of future development. Is the city behind this as an economic development strategy or use for this underutilized building? Do you have a plan for how you would market this and get it out to potential developers? Do you already have a developer that's considering it? So you want to also connect the project's relationship to that overall vision. Is this particular building already listed as a catalytic project for the district? And then what is that impact of the building on the Main Street district? What kinds of impacts do you anticipate? If there's housing, how many housing units will be increased within the district? If there are new commercial spaces within the building, how many new businesses might be attracted to this to the site? And then what is the organizational capacity and readiness? Again, getting back to the readiness. Is this project fully baked? And are you really ready to invest time and resources into this pre-development work for a building? And then, of course, a realistic work plan for the project. And with all of our grants, you have to meet that 70-point threshold in order to be funded. So these questions, the application questions, relate directly to that scoring. And so you got to provide that description of the property, its condition, where it's located within the district, what's adjacent to it. And then describe how addressing the property identified for feasibility study furthers the community's vision for the Main Street district. How does it connect to the vision? And discuss any current threats and opportunities proposed by the property to the ongoing revitalization of the district. So is it in its current condition being considered for demolition? Well, being in the preservation business, asset-based economic development, we want to avoid that. So what are those threats? Let us know. If nothing is done, what impact will it have, this underutilized building, on the district? And if redevelopment is done, what impact will that have? Discuss the willingness of the current property owner to facilitate a feasibility study. Of course, you got to have their approval. It's not something that could be done as a rogue municipality or Main Street organization. You want to have a good relationship with the property owner and be sure that they're on board in exploring this highest and best use. Of course, that's one of those key indicators of whether a project may move forward. Is it proposed that the current owner will be the developer, or will the property be shopped to developers? With all the other grants, who is involved with this project in making sure that this feasibility study is completed? And then describe the timeline of activities. So we're getting to that work plan. What tasks need to happen, and what is that timeline in order to know that you've mapped out a trajectory to be completed by May 31st of the following year. And the supporting documentation, we need that community's vision statement, an organization's mission statement if this is a project being led by the Main Street organization, a list of team members, project work plan, so there is a template included for all of these grants, project budget and explanation of cost estimates and any leverage verification. Sometimes this 25,000, by the way, isn't quite enough depending on the size of a project. We've seen some projects that are quite large, multiple buildings, and so it does require, in order to make the study feasible at all, have some matching funds on board. For instance, Fredericksburg pursued the Renwick complex, which is an old Gothic building in downtown that the city owns, and it has several exterior buildings within the complex. And of course, that's a lot of square footage. So they had to bring another 25,000 to the table to make it feasible to actually do the study. You want to have maps, photos, project renderings. What does the property currently look like? Where is it located within the district? If there are any renderings that are already done, please share those. We want to see what you're thinking about for this property. And then plans and any other studies that have already been done. So a couple of examples here. So the Luray Downtown Initiative utilized this grant to determine the highest and best use of the Artisan Grill property. The Artisan Grill property is situated at a key intersection in their downtown and was quite a destination for dining. And so this study was used in order to look at new uses. And of course, it found that a restaurant use is viable in its place. And this study is being used to attract our current tenant. And so LDI is working with the property owners in order to find a local developer in order to attract more visitors to the district. Whoops, let me finish out. Alta Vista on track to use the feasibility study in order to look at their former firehouse in downtown. And what they were exploring specifically was development of the Spark Innovation Center, so a state-of-the-art co-working facility in downtown to support entrepreneurs and small business incubation. And this is something that we're seeing as a very viable use within downtown, especially following the impacts of the pandemic. That more people are working from home, but they may want another location in order to look at some other walls, but also be around other entrepreneurs. And so looking at larger spaces that might be subdivided into temporary offices or larger co-working spaces has been determined to be a very viable use for larger commercial buildings in downtown. And then the Stanton Downtown Development Association worked with a local organization to explore the feasibility of two adjacent historic buildings, which included the Dixie Theater. And this building was sitting vacant for a long time. A previous organization had tried to raise the money for this, but unfortunately, due to economic circumstances, they weren't able to. And so a new organization came on board, totally fueled, ready to go with a plan, and they needed to do that pre-development work. That would help them with attracting the additional funds for the rehabilitation of the property. The project created increased collaboration among a variety of audiences and creators and helped FDDA to grow the next generation of thinkers and change makers. So this grant has been used in several circumstances to explore the highest and best use for future Industrial Revitalization Fund grants. So we saw that with St. Paul and the Western Front Hotel. They first used the financial feasibility grant to look at the highest and best use, developing out a boutique hotel. And well, they used that in order to apply for that IRF grant. And they now have a beautiful facility in downtown. So just something to think about as far as utilizing other DHCD resources to get that building back into good use. All right. I guess I'll end here before passing on to Courtney. All three of these manuals are available on the DHCD website under Virginia Main Street, the Virginia Main Street program. We will have this website, or excuse me, this presentation available as a PDF and posted to the website, so you can easily click on that and get to where you need to go. All right, Courtney, it's all yours.
Yay, so I get to talk about CAMS. CAMS is the centralized application and management system for grants to our agency, and then for ongoing management, submitting reports, remittances, processing your funds. So if you're not familiar with CAMS, it's time to begin. If you haven't already done so, please create a profile in CAMS, and your locality or your organization, whichever entity it is, must apply to get into CAMS. It's not immediate. It usually takes a few days to get through all of the human checks to the automated system. And our human checks are taking just a little bit longer since our agency has taken on more programming throughout the pandemic. So just be a little bit patient with that and don't wait till the last minute. When you're submitting your profile, or even if you already have one, make sure that the appropriate staff are assigned to your organization so that the person who needs to be managing this process is able to do so. And it works best with Internet or Explorer or Chrome. So if you have a preference for another browser, maybe this is the time to put that on pause so that you can get through it just a little bit easier. And CAMS can be frustrating, we do know. Be sure to save often, use the Save This tab. And it works best if you type directly into CAMS. Otherwise, the formatting can get weird. Another way to deal with the weird formatting can also be to type into a simple text editor like Notepad, or I think, I can't remember the one in Apple Pages maybe, but you want a simple text editor if you're going to do a copy and paste, because just typing or copying and pasting from Word is not necessarily going to be effective. And of course, if you have questions, the user guide is available online, and people usually also ask us. So we don't know all the secrets of CAMS, but we're getting better every day. So feel free to talk to us as well if you have questions about CAMS. And then financial statement and audit policy. This is a necessary evil. We cannot get away from this because we are fundamentally stewards of the taxpayers' dollars, and the taxpayers are investing in you through these programs. So take a look at the requirements for financial statements and or audits that must be submitted in order for your organization to receive funds. And I wanted to toss this in there. We have a work from home pilot that is a new thing as of this morning. So this is a technical assistance pilot in partnership with Virginia Main Street and the National Main Street Center. Up to 3 communities can participate in this program. And the goal is to learn how to leverage remote work opportunities as part of your downtown comprehensive revitalization strategy. And I noticed that Maggie Elliott from Bristol hopped off, and that's okay, but I did want to actually mention Bristol as the type of community that might be interested in this. So Bristol received a write-up in the Wall Street Journal last year as one of the hottest real estate markets in the country. And it's hard to believe that this border town between Tennessee and Virginia is one of the hottest real estate markets in the country, but it's because remote work is now a possibility. And people want to be close to family that they haven't been able to work near in the past. And there are also just a lot of real estate opportunities for families that want to own a slightly larger home, and they don't have to worry about the commute to a large metropolitan area. So if your community is seeing an influx of come-heres from major metropolitan markets, this could be an opportunity to work with the National Main Street Center's consulting division to find out what might be some answers to how to integrate those folks into caring about your community in a new way and contributing their ideas and their energy to making downtown a better place. So we do have an application online that is not through CAMS. This is going to be a slightly simpler fillable PDF form that you then send in to us. Applications are due April 4th, so you have about a month to turn that around. And of course, feel free to contact me if you have any questions about that. So with that, we will wrap it up and say thank you for your time. There are 0 questions in the chat box, which is very unusual for us. So we'll give you, 5 awkward seconds here to throw them in there. Otherwise, we'll consider you fully enlightened and send you on your way. All right. Well, thank you one and all. We appreciate your time and we look forward to seeing the applications. Oh, okay. We do have someone wanting to go back to the first slide when Zachary was speaking. So Zachary, I have a question about the Community Vitality Grant. So Jamie, what is your question? And you can take yourself off mute if you want, Jamie. You can just shout it out there.
Thanks. I just wanted to get a screenshot, which I now have gotten. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie.
You got it. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. I hope that you have a great rest of your week, and we look forward to reading your applications. Bye. You can end the recording, Kyle.
Yes, indeed.
I foresee many great VMS grant applications in our future.